The rain came down in fine, silvery threads, soaking the cracked pavement and painting the morning cityscape in gray. Emma tightened her grip on her coat and hurried toward the bus stop, her shoes splashing through shallow puddles. It was one of those mornings when everything seemed to go wrong. She had overslept after staying up too late finishing a report, burned her toast, and now, of course, the sky had decided to open up. She reached the stop just as the bus she needed hissed away from the curb, taillights glowing faintly through the mist. Her shoulders sagged. The next bus wouldn't come for 20 minutes. As she let out a tired sigh, the paper cup in her hand slipped from her grasp, spilling lukewarm coffee across the wet sidewalk. Perfect, she muttered, her breath visible in the cold air. Her hair, frizzing from the damp, stuck to her cheeks. She wiped her hands against her coat, feeling utterly defeated. That's when she heard a voice beside her. Tough morning. The tone was light, sympathetic. She turned to see a man about her age, holding a dark blue umbrella big enough to cover both of them. He had kind eyes, slightly crinkled at the corners, and a tentative smile that suggested he didn't want to intrude. Something like that, Emma said with a small, embarrassed laugh. Forgot my umbrella, missed my bus, and now I'm officially out of caffeine. So, yeah, kind of a perfect storm. The man chuckled softly. You're having the kind of day that needs a do-over. He gestured toward a coffee cart parked nearby under a makeshift canopy. How about a fresh start? My treat. It's the least I can do for a fellow rain casualty. She hesitated, glancing toward the puddles and the small crowd under the awning. That's really kind, but you don't have to. I know, he said simply. But I want to. There was something about his tone, sincere, unhurried, that made her accept. They jogged together through the rain, sharing his umbrella. The warmth from the cart's heater and the rich smell of roasted coffee beans made everything feel a little less dreary. He ordered 2 cappuccinos and handed one to her. I'm Daniel, by the way. Emma, she replied, wrapping her fingers around the cup. The warmth seeped into her palms. They talked for a few minutes, nothing deep, just small, ordinary things about the weather, the city, how unpredictable mornings could be. But when the next bus arrived, something about the encounter lingered. Emma stepped onto the bus feeling lighter, almost foolishly happy. That tiny gesture, that brief exchange, had shifted the color of her whole day. Hours later, the rain had stopped and the office air buzzed with fluorescent light and tension. Emma sat at her desk, surrounded by half-finished spreadsheets, the weight of deadlines pressing down. Across the room, her coworker Brian hunched over his computer, frustration etched across his face. He had been struggling with the new software for days and looked ready to give up. Normally, Emma would have stayed out of it. She had her own mountain of tasks, but something about the morning replayed in her mind. Daniel's easy smile, the way he hadn't expected anything in return. She stood and walked over. Hey, do you want a hand with that? She asked. Brian blinked up at her, surprised. Seriously, you've got enough to do. I know, she said with a small shrug. But maybe we can finish faster together. An hour later, the two of them were laughing over the final edits, the tension gone. The project that had seemed impossible was suddenly ready to submit. Brian leaned back and exhaled. I owe you one, Emma. You just saved my job. She smiled, sipping her coffee. Don't mention it. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. That night, as she rode the subway home, she thought about how different the day had turned out. It had started in frustration and ended in quiet satisfaction. Kindness, she realized, had a way of rippling outward. You never knew how far it would reach. Across the city, the ripple continued. The next day, Brian found himself on the same subway line, packed shoulder to shoulder with commuters. An elderly woman stepped on, gripping the rail with shaky hands, and no one moved. Brian glanced up, remembered Emma's calm patience, and stood. Here, ma'am, please, take my seat. The woman smiled, eyes bright with gratitude. You're very kind, young man. Thank you. Her smile caught the attention of a teenage boy standing nearby. He watched the exchange silently but with growing interest. The boy had spent most mornings plugged into his headphones, avoiding eye contact, lost in his own world. But something about the small, quiet moment between the older woman and Brian stuck with him. The next afternoon, as he left school, the boy spotted a woman struggling to carry groceries up a steep flight of stairs. Without thinking, he ran forward and offered to help. She looked startled at first but then smiled, relieved. "That's very sweet of you," she said. He shrugged, embarrassed, mumbling something about it being no big deal. But as he walked away, a strange warmth filled him, an unfamiliar sense that he had done something right. The chain reaction kept spreading, invisible but powerful, weaving through strangers and neighbors and friends of friends. A single gesture, an umbrella offered on a rainy morning, had sparked a quiet current of generosity that reached people who would never know where it began. Weeks later, the weather had turned crisp. The trees along the avenue had started to turn gold, their leaves drifting lazily down to the sidewalk. Daniel was walking home from work, distracted by a phone call, when his wallet slipped from his jacket pocket. He didn't notice until he was nearly home. Panic rose in his chest as he patted his coat and retraced his steps, scanning the pavement. Half an hour later, he was standing at the corner where he thought he'd lost it, staring hopelessly at the ground. Then a voice called out behind him. "Excuse me, are you Daniel?" He turned, startled. Emma stood there, holding a worn brown wallet in one hand. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, her hair tucked behind her ears. She smiled, eyes bright. "I found this near the cafe across from your building. I recognized your ID." For a moment, Daniel could only blink, surprised by the coincidence. "You're kidding. You found it." She nodded, handing it over. "Kindness always finds its way back," she said softly. He looked down at the wallet, then back at her, and laughed in disbelief. "I guess it does." They stood there on the corner, surrounded by drifting leaves, the late afternoon sun spilling gold across the street. The city buzzed around them, cars, laughter, the distant sound of a bus engine, but for that moment, everything seemed to pause. Emma told him how much that rainy morning had changed her day, how it had reminded her that even small gestures mattered. Daniel smiled, feeling an unexpected swell of emotion. "Funny," he said. "I almost didn't stop that morning. I was running late myself. But something told me to." "That something changed more than you know," she replied. They walked together for a while, talking easily, as if they'd known each other for years. When they finally said goodbye, there was a sense of quiet completion between them, a circle closed, a story gently ending where it began. In the days that followed, both of them carried that moment like a secret warmth. Neither of them could see the full web of lives their small kindness had touched, but they didn't need to. It was enough to know that one simple act, a shared umbrella, a coffee offered without expectation, had rippled outward in ways they could never have imagined. And somewhere, in the rhythm of the city, more acts of kindness were already unfolding, each one born from another, each one reminding the world, in its own quiet way, that even the smallest gesture can change everything.